So they adapted this much out of Volume 2 for this episode. Now, I know many are saying, oh, here we go again. Chibi's here to complain about the episode, and he's going to mention all the bad, he's going to be nitpicking, he's not going to point out any good things about the episode. And, that's kind of where you're wrong. I actually enjoyed this episode. I'm not gonna lie. I actually had a lot of fun watching this episode. However, there was problems, which I will get into, but there was some really good stuff, and there was actually some changes that were done that I actually approve of. And so, before I get into what everybody considers the bad, like really bad or nitpicking, let's get into some of the good things that I noticed that they changed. I want to point out this scene to when they're talking about, pets and stuff, and how they're selling, people in the auction. You see this dialogue underneath Suzuya, and you see how it states that, they sometimes, buy humans for pets. And this directly applies to Suzuya as a character. And this little dialogue piece, that is something I truly appreciate, because it adds a little bit of, hidden meaning there, and you're going to be able to pick up on that if you remember Suzuya's, characterization and his past from Part 1 Tokyo Ghoul. Now, I want to be honest here. I'm going to be completely honest, it's been a while since I've seen the anime of TG, like Season 1 and Season 2, and I don't know if they properly dived into Suzuya's past. I don't believe they did. I could be wrong there, but I don't believe they properly ever established Suzuya's past. And so, many anime-onlys, if you're an anime-only watching this, you're probably not even going to understand or know who Big Madam is in the first place when it comes to this episode. Now, another scene I did like was towards the end, you see the flowers and you see the paper airplane right next to Shinohara that's in a coma in the hospital. And as we know, Shinohara was someone that was like a father figure to Suzuya, and he was someone that always had, to where he was looking out for Suzuya. He wanted to be this father figure. He wanted to make sure that he would get somewhere. That was the big point of Shinohara's character. And at the end of Part 1, as you know, he went down. Thanks to what happened with Al and all that, what Eto did, you had it to where, he went into a coma, and it was like a big, change of life for Suzuya. It really changed him because he lost someone that he truly cared about. He didn't realize what he had until he really lost it in that moment. And so when you see that flower scene and the paper airplane and all that, and that entire segment, I really like how Studio Clown actually added that in. It was a really good scene. It was good setup for something later on down the road for the future of the series. So props to them on that. Now, there is another little scene that they changed, but in reality, I think it was actually a really well done detail. It would definitely be harder for people to notice if you don't know much about Big Madam or remember, but I believe that in the end, it was a good solid change because it allows them to be a little bit more cheap on the animation department. Now, to get right into the scene, right before Big Madam was discussed, Hanbi looks over to Suzuya, and you see how there's a pause. He looks over to him to see if it's okay to talk about Big Madam in the first place, and you have it to where Suzuya, he looks over at Hanbi and he actually, smiles, and he has a sweet in his mouth, or snack. And that moment is where it shows that Hanbi, and at the very least Suzuya's squad, is aware of Suzuya's relationship with Big Madam, and, that he's very sensitive, because it's a sensitive part of his past. And so even though this scene wasn't in the manga, it actually shows a little bit more clarity to Suzuya and his squad, and how Suzuya really has people in his squad that cares about him. So, in a way, this scene is actually better than the manga. They did cheap out on the animation department and art, because it was supposed to look really cool when you see, Big Madam and all that with the spider webs and stuff, and butterflies, and the spider web behind her. But in reality, though, the way they did the little nod to that, it added a little bit more clarity to Suzuya's squad and how they feel about him in the first place. So, even though I would have loved to have the beautiful art, I do actually like the direction of that. Now, here's the thing, though. Like I said, I don't remember if Big Madam was properly established in the first two seasons. I really don't remember at all. I want to be honest here. And if you are an anime only and you remember the first two seasons, let me know. I'm very curious about that, because I know for a fact I saw some not even recognize who Big Madam was, and I know it's been a long time too, and people do forget information. Even manga readers that read the series, they forget information as well when it comes to Big Madam, or any little details here and there, because there's just so many things that get mentioned way off in the future that you didn't really think was relevant, but does become relevant in the future. So I can see why, even if it was in Season 1, Season 2, some some would forget. But there you go, clarity to that. Big Madam and all that scene was changed with Suzuya, but it actually was better in the end. So, yeah, it works out. Now, this next scene I want to be talking about focuses on Tsukiyama and Hori, and kind of their relationship, and kind of how this scene, even though there was content cut within, it was actually well done. Now, there is obviously some trims off of it, and there wasn't a lot of clarity to kind of like Hori in general, but in reality, I think what Studio Clown was trying to do in this scene when they were showing, Tsukiyama in the past and all that, and Hori's relationship, it actually was them telling you need to go watch the OVA. So to kind of let you all know, that entire scene, if you don't remember, if you've only watched Season 1 or Season 2, or if you, actually haven't read the light novels and you read the manga and you don't remember stuff like that, that was a light novel that was added to Tokyo Ghoul that clarified a little bit of Tsukiyama's past, and it also showed how Hori was introduced into the series and had a relationship with Tsukiyama in the first place. But then eventually it was adapted into an OVA episode, which I actually think was really well done. And so, I think what Studio Clown was trying to say here is that if you want the full context, then go watch the OVA. If you want to understand this moment between, Hori and all that, and Tsukiyama and what that meaning was, there you go. But there was one little scene cut from this that actually kind of added more to Hori's character. It's a little bit disappointing, but in reality it isn't too big, but it is disappointing personally to me. Hori was supposed to catch on to the fact that if, Kane was there and all that, to be able to see what's going on with Hori, fill out Hori, see why she was, doing something like this to Tsukiyama, giving, a pair of briefs and all that. That means that Tsukiyama must have had a reaction, or some form of reaction, but this was actually cut out from this episode, and we didn't get to see the inner monologue from Hori in this scene with how she was thinking about Tsukiyama, and how he must have reacted to Heise Sasaki. So there you go. Okay, now moving into the bad. So if you don't want to hear any bad things at all, I recommend you to stop the video here, okay? Because I know many got upset with me because they said I was nitpicking. And, I want to take a quote I said on Twitter and what I said in my Chibi questions. If you truly love a series, you will acknowledge all its faults and even point them out. But if you only look at the good, then clearly you're just a fanboy. That's my quote, and you can get upset with that, whatever, but that is like my philosophy in a way. I want to try to go by that, and I have a lot of passion for TG. So, because of how much I love this series and I want the series to be very good, obviously I'm going to complain about it if I see some problems. If I didn't, I would just eat it up. It would honestly be a lot easier on me just to be nice to this series, because then, I would probably get a lot more good karma, basically, from these episode reviews. Just gonna be completely honest here, but I'm not like that, because I love this series, I'm passionate about it, and I want to talk about, everything, even the bad. So anyways, to start off though, we have this scene cut with Heise Sasaki walking into the cafe to meet Toka. Now, I know you're probably saying, whoa, that was in the last episode towards the end. Yes, that was a scene. However, Heise Sasaki was supposed to go back into the cafe later on, mainly in this episode, by himself to read books, get a cup of coffee, and then he would temporarily, sometimes he would glance over at Toka, he would take looks at her, and that's kind of what that scene was supposed to do, and it was also to give more reference that Heise Sasaki was Kaneki, because he has a thing for books, and so this entire scene was completely cut out. It was not in the episode, and it makes me upset because this scene, it is kind of important. Because as I talked about when it came to Toka and Kaneki and eventually them, getting together and all of that, the reason why Toka even starts asking stuff about her hair and questioning Kaneki and stuff like that is because she knew that Kaneki had some form of feelings towards her, because Heise Sasaki, he would just look at Toka and stare at her the same way Kaneki would stare at Rize. So that scene being cut out from this episode is pretty important for some more context to their future relationship, which I'm a little bit disappointed about. Now, moving into the next scene, we have Psycho's entire backstory axed. It's gone. It's completely gone in this episode. Now, it could potentially be added back, but because of the content we are getting into right now, and we're going headfirst into the auction arc, I don't believe there's going to be time to really add it back. I just don't think there is enough time. So, I believe they're gonna completely just axe Psycho's backstory. Now, to kind of actually let you all know, Psycho's backstory, in reality, when it comes to, like, her relationship of her family and all that, what her mother did to her, for instance, selling her to become a QS just for she can have money. Like, for instance, the mother decided to put Psycho down an operation, or do an operation, to be able to get money. So the mother was greedy and used her own child to get money, and then now Psycho has been forced to become a QS against her will. And there was supposed to be, like, a big convo between, Shirazu and Sasaki in this episode, with them talking about that, and that's the reason why Sasaki isn't really forcing Psycho to actually, participate in their operations, is because she was just forced against her will to be a part of the QS. And so it makes sense why she would show no motivation in the first place. But also, this was to show a connection between Kaneki and the QS, and how similar they really are. Now, here's a little bit of an FYI. Even some of you manga readers might actually be unaware of this, but the QS, each individual QS, is a representation of a certain part of Kaneki's personality. Uri is more of that part of Kaneki's personality seeking power. You have, Psycho, she's the part of the family problems that, Kaneki had as a kid with his mother and all that. And then you have the certain things with Shirazu, how he has doubt about himself to become a strong leader. And then you have Mutsuki, which also shows this weakened side, that the black-haired Kaneki's weak side that, is really like, like a pushover in a way. And so these individual characters, they were supposed to represent a part of Kaneki's personality. They have traits to Kaneki and what he once was. It's kind of like his personality literally split into multiple people. And that scene, like, Psycho's past getting kind of axed from this, episode, kind of removes that context of how similar Psycho is to Kaneki. Now, however, when it comes to Kaneki's relationship with his mother, that was removed from the anime. I know for a fact it was, because of Rude. See, Rude didn't show the Arima versus Kaneki fight, and not many really have good context on what Arima did to Kaneki in the first place. And so the entire inner monologue with Kaneki talking with his other self and all that, and then seeing his mother, what happened to his mother, then lying, putting his hand on his chin, saying, I really like mother and all that. Basically, that right there was to show that Kaneki had problems with his own mother. And so with them removing Psycho, like her past, it disconnects us from, once again, another part of Kaneki. So there you go. Now, carrying on forward even more, let's talk about the Mutsuki and Torso stuff. So Mutsuki, we had a scene in this episode to where she started to freak out when she was in the club, and she was like, don't look at me, don't look at me. And now this scene was properly adapted from the manga. I'm not complaining on this scene. It was properly adapted. No problems at all. The thing is with the way this scene is done, it has no context. There's like, it makes no sense. If you are somehow an anime only, or if you have read part 1 Tokyo Ghoul, and then you just decided to watch the anime instead of reading the manga, this is not gonna make any sense. And the reason why it will not make any sense is because, as I talked about in my first episode review, you can go back and look for yourself, they removed a scene with Torso ripping Mutsuki's shirt down and revealing that she had a bra on, and that she was actually a girl all along, and just hiding and acting like a dude. And so the scene where it's like, don't look and all that, and she looks like a beautiful woman, that was a reference to that Mutsuki doesn't like, men looking at her like that. And so there you go. But also when it comes to Torso as a character, and him like, I want Mutsuki, I want Mutsuki, I want Mutsuki, like, you see this man having like a mental breakdown way, like he's psychotic, it also undermines Torso's character, because the whole reason why he wanted Mutsuki was because she had scars on her body, but that scene was cut. We didn't get to see the scars all over her body, and in the scene where he's having like this freak out, like in the anime, this is the scene that was in the manga. You see Mutsuki's body with scars all over it. So it shows right there that the reason why he's attracted to her is because of the scars. But with that being removed, it doesn't make any sense why Torso is going after Mutsuki. So there you go. That's the thing I'm saying. There's just no context to it at all. They completely removed the reason why Torso even wants Mutsuki in the first place. Now, they did also remove a scene with Suzuya, with how he was going over to Sasaki and he was looking for snacks and stuff. Now, this part isn't that important at all. It really is not important. I mean, they mainly decided just to make it a very silent and comedic scene, and in a way, the stuff they did remove was more of a comedy thing, so I'm not really upset with this, but they removed the explanation to why Suzuya was going out of his way to look for candy on Sasaki. Now, they also removed Matsuri's backstory, or his characterization. Now, this could easily be added in for the next episode. Easily, because of the way the episode ended. There is more time to be able to add this in, but Matsuri's characterization was completely cut out, and it explained the reason to why he was just, willing to allow Mutsuki to charge into the enemy headquarters by herself, and this scene was completely cut. For instance, him basically showing that he has no care for the QS at all. He's willing to use them and just throw them out like they're expendable, or he thinks of a lot of people as expendable, and that characterization was cut, and it gave more clarity to why he would do something like that to Mutsuki, and then why, Suzu went out of his way to kind of say, like, he's going to help out Mutsuki in the first place. So anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the stuff they majorly changed. Now, speaking of art-wise of the episode, obviously there's a lot of scenes in the manga that are superior than the anime. And I do know when it comes to time constraints and stuff, they can't make it perfect from the manga. I completely understand that. However, there is one scene that upset me a little bit they removed. They removed the scene where, when Donato was talking to Heisei Sasaki about his memories, you were supposed to see like a centipede-like Kaneki right behind Sasaki, but you didn't see it at all. And I was kind of disappointed that that scene was removed in the first place. I mean, there were some beautiful panels and stuff that were removed as well, but I mean, overall, it wasn't anything crazy that destroyed the episode for me. But, yeah, overall, I think the episode, it's a pretty good episode. I think that there is some concerns with the things they removed, and they obviously keep removing things, and since this has kind of been stated to be a 12-episode series, then, I mean, it's obvious that they're trying to get to the Rosewald arc as quickly as possible. They're really wanting to get there, and they're really wanting to get to the auction raid as quickly as possible as well, which is why it seems like next week is going to be beginning the auction raid for, episode 4, when, technically, if I look at the chapter right now, it's chapter 17 and 18 when the auction raid starts, and this is just episode 3. And that means we've already went through 16 chapters of content, and partially some of chapter 33, thanks to the introduction of Furuta and all of that. We've already went through, 16 and a quarter chapters just in 3 episodes. So that's kind of insane when you think about that. And so they really wanted to get to the auction rate as quickly as possible for action-wise, and it's kind of disappointing. But I want to leave it at that. I know people are not going to like my opinion on this episode, because I saw last week many are like, I don't like what you're saying about this series and all that. And look, if you don't like it, I understand. I know people like, people talking about their favorite series or series they like. I understand that. And so if you don't like me, if you don't like the series, leave a dislike. I won't fault you for it. I understand. I completely understand if you don't like my opinion on the series. Everybody has a right to that. But with that being said, if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Chibi out.